Travis Wayne Goodsell. I'm still waiting to finish the saving of the New Testament video that's supposed to be for today's Sunday school lesson. And watched an episode of Flash, and it's still saving. It's an hour and a half long. And so I will go on to the other topic that I'm dying and eager to share with you. About human baby trafficking by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's already established that human trafficking is still practiced to this day. But as I have demonstrated that I am a victim of the church and their human trafficking at the shelter. But they used to have an adoption agency, and it's part of LDS Family Services, or was, until 2014. We'll get to that in a moment. Because LDS Family Services has also been in the news because they excommunicated one of their employees in one of the other states outside of Utah for, as a psychologist, preaching and teaching that masturbation's okay and pornography is not an addiction. And so because the church was upset with her in teaching the science, the medical science, truth, they had her excommunicated and fired. But she's a psychologist. Why is she saying that masturbation's okay and pornography's not an addiction? Isn't that what they do as part of addiction recovery that Family Services is also involved in with psychology? Well, yeah, I don't understand why. She broke with her career field and the church in teaching medical science. And so there's a Los Angeles Times article on July 13th, 2012 at 12 a.m. Can't you just put midnight? Do you have to put 12 a.m.? By Alex B. Berezal, titled Why Psychology Isn't Science. Because obviously you're not listening to me when I tell you. It was my career field. I know all about it. I've been sharing with you exact details of why. But, I don't know, maybe you'll listen to the Los Angeles Times. So, psychologist Timothy D. Wilson, a professor at the University of Virginia, expressed resentment in his Times op-ed article on Thursday over the fact that most scientists don't consider his field a real science. Most? Try all. That was what I was taught in my education about the philosophy of science, is that psychology is the only field that isn't a hard-based science. It uses fallacy arguments and therefore is illegitimate. He casts scientists as condescending bullies, exactly as I described it for you. They are bullies. They name call you. You've got a mental illness problem, and I'll help you if you pay me money. You're getting shook down at school. And yes, psychologists are in the schools to be the bullies of little children and take their money. Because they get paid. Once, during a meeting at my university, a biologist, a hard science, mentioned that he was the only faculty member present from a science department. When I corrected him, no, this is the psychologist who's upset, noting that I was from the Department of Psychology. waved his hand dismissively, as if I were a little leaguer telling a member of the New York Yankees that I too played baseball. No! Baseball is still baseball, whether it's little league or major leagues. You're not even in the right sport. Hilarious. So, yes, sociology? Oh, yeah. My brother's in sociology, and I noticed psychology that he was being taught. I wasn't taught sociology when I took sociology classes. What the hell? So apparently, psychology is trying to enter into other sciences and change them into non-science fields, too. Let's see. The dismissive attitude scientists have towards psychologists isn't rooted in snobbery. It's rooted in intellectual frustration. It's rooted in the failure of psychologists to acknowledge that they don't have the same claim on secular truth that the hard sciences do. They use fallacy arguments. It's rooted in the tired exasperation that scientists feel when non-scientists try to pretend they are scientists. That's right, psychology isn't science. We can definitely say that because psychology often does not meet the 5 basic requirements for a field to be considered scientifically rigorous. Clearly defined terminology, quantifiability, highly controlled experimental conditions, reproducibility, replicate, sound familiar from me? And finally, predictability and testability. Wow. Travis, how did you know? Those were big words that we understood, and we didn't understand the simple language that you were explaining it to us in. Happiness research is a great example of why psychology isn't science. How exactly should happiness be defined? It's a response. It's an emotional response. It is not to be defined. So, alrighty. So is that clear now? So why then is the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints' family services I'm debating if I should obtain this, at least the part about the 5. I'm concerned that my word is going to take forever to pop up. And yes, it is. Alright, so we can go to family services and it should pop up when it pops up. Alright, so Family Services, LDS Family Services, is a private, non-profit corporation owned and operated by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So the profits dictate how it is to be run. So don't think that it's an independent organization. It's run and owned and operated by the church, which means the profits. There you go. I probably need to get to the history, because this is the summary at the first part of the Wikipedia page on it, and I can tell that no critical voice has been involved in its making, because there's some bias information in there that deceives us. But yes, all the time we had jokes about psychology. They are a joke. And they get mad because they're fallacious. So obviously they get mad, just like a religion gets mad. Religions are fallacious. They are not based in reality. And yet you have religious people entering into the science fields to change them. That's very dangerous. Why don't you accept it? You accept it as a, if I type it in, but you don't. Why isn't science? Okay. Hilarious. So now we can say goodbye to the times. Alright, we're at 83%. Alright, so I'm still having to adjust my eyes with the new contact lens that I put in. It offers members of the church and other suckers and losers marital and family counseling, addiction and drug dependency. Really? I can become addicted and drug dependent? Counseling, general psychology, counseling, and other services to women or girls experiencing unintended pregnancy. You mean rape? Then they also offer classes to strengthen marriage and families. The church has a manual on that, along with the addiction recovery program, which is based on Christian values. Why is the church using it? We're not Christian. We're Jewish. Yeah, the 12-step model, it's a joke. It's a fraud. It's a scam. And yet, the courts force people into the 12-step program as part of their punishment for recovery of whatever crime they committed, which is most often just possession rather than actual use or distribution. Because at the shelter, they didn't want to go after the distributors that I told them were doing it. Nope. They wanted to go after the individual users. They didn't want to go after the shelter who was purposely allowing the drugs to be used and sold at the shelter, causing the drug residue from meth to permeate the whole building, as I was showing you on the lower top bunk. The drug residue there, which was why I was always sick at my bed. Anyway, 1919. That's when it was first created as the Relief Society Social Service Department, the RSSSD. The Really Super Sacred Secret Department by Amy B. Lyman, an official in the church's Relief Society organization. An official? Dear God. If she was the president, call her the president. If she was a counselor, call her a counselor. In 1969, the organization was renamed United Social Services, the USS Enterprise, and separated from the Relief Society. In 1973, the organization became a corporation separate from the church, still under the control of the church, and was renamed LDS Social Services. 1999, because the church was able to get her excommunicated, a social worker, the psychologist woman. The name was changed to LDS Family Services. In 2019, the name was changed to Family Services. Dear God. Until 1934, the program only had professional staff in Salt Lake City. In that year, additional offices were operated in Ogden, Utah, Los Angeles, California. Starting in 1957, the Indian Placement Program, the Indian Trafficking Program, was placed under the auspices of the CCCP, Flash, the Central City Center press, media. Hilarious. As if the writers couldn't be more obvious that they're using socialist, communist values to indoctrinate today's young adults who watch the CW show. No wonder it's been frustrating for me, and I can see the psychological influence in there. Oh, we're snowflakes. Oh, I don't know if I can save the world, Flash. You can do it. I have faith in you. Oh my God, what happened? Superman used to go after the KKK and the suits and tie mafia corporations and the black and white TV shows, and now they're all snowflakes. In 1962, a branch office was opened in Phoenix, Arizona. Oh, Arizona. There's been other news that we're about to get to that they don't want to cover here. With another opened in Las Vegas, Nevada. Yeah, I wonder why Las Vegas. In 1965. Back in those days, or at least when I went, there'd be little pictures on the floor as you walk around the streets, advertising very pretty women. When the program was removed from being under the direction of the Relief Society and the USS Enterprise was created, and the USS was created in 1965, Marvin J. Ashton, but I thought it was separate from the church, was appointed as managing director. The USS Oversight Committee consisted of Marion G. Romney. Yeah, because it's not associated with the church anymore. As chair, and Spencer W. Kimball, Thomas S. Monson, John Vanderberg, the church's presiding bishop, because it's not associated with the church anymore. And Bell S. Spatford as members, because it's not associated with the church anymore. Yeah, just tell us the truth. In 1971, when Ashton became a member of the Quorum of the 12, he was replaced by Victor L. Brown, because it's not associated with the church. Spencer W. Kimball, not associated with the church. Marion G. Romney, not associated with the church. Yeah, nor Thomas S. Monson. Or the presiding bishopric. Because it's not associated with the church. As of 2019, they're all over the world. This is why I'm concerned, deeply concerned, when they are doing business deals with foreign countries that promote and encourage human child sex trafficking. Like Saudi Arabia, when the Saudi Arabian princess came to visit. See, the church tried to claim, oh, we're just talking about the church and our shared belief systems. Well, she gets up and talks about how, independent of the experience with the church, she was explaining how whenever she meets with somebody, it's always for a business deal that will benefit Saudi Arabia. And so she revealed, LDS Pharisees deny Christ. Ching. Alright, we're free at last. And so, as I warned you about, it was a business meeting. And Saudi Arabia is all about child sex slavery. So the church is wanting to do this with their family services division. And so you remember the soccer event that took place in that foreign country that used slave labor to build all of the soccer arenas. And everybody was complaining about the inhumane conditions that they were put under. Well, and then a Utah Attorney General and another Utah official were bribed by that country to attend the match. Well, remember Sean Reyes when he first became the new Attorney General? He was involved in a raid of sex child slave trade in a foreign country. He helped rescue those girls. That's been his thing, is helping with busting up child sex slavery. And he's being bribed by a foreign government that also was doing business with the church, as he's a Mormon, as the Attorney General, who would be the one in charge of shutting down child sex trafficking, and he's being bribed by a country who's involved with child sex trafficking. Do you see where we're going with this? And the news obviously isn't talking about that. They're more concerned about, can our government leaders be bribed by foreign governments who are enemies of America? Oh my God! And so this is where the concern comes from. Adoption services discontinued. Yes, they used to be involved in adoptions. Well, how do you get adoptions? Well, you got to have clients who have unwanted pregnancies. So how is this done? We know exactly how it's done. They're blatantly obvious about it, as so are the pro-lifers. This is where the pro-life, pro-choice argument comes in, and it's a fallacy argument because psychologists have influenced it to divide America, to destroy us. Psychology are the enemy of the people. They were recruited from Nazi Germany, by the way, into the CIA to help them brainwash the masses. And we're getting declassified information about all of the experiments that they've been torturing humans in America with concerning this. MK Ultra, for example, has been declassified, among others. We have done to Americans what the Nazis did to the Jews. And it's worse because do you think that these Nazi psychologists are going to be grateful for their American liberators? No. They're going to want revenge for having won the war against their country. But they're going to keep silent about it. They're not going to express their displeasure and say, I'm not working for your government. No. They're getting freed from punishment that other officers were getting punished for. They got a free pass to come to America, to work with the CIA, to get revenge on America. This is why psychology is dividing America to conquer it. And our government let it happen. And they're not a science. They're a fraud using fallacy arguments. And they're destroying America. And the church embraces them and controls them when necessary, when they step out of line. And so yes, like I've been telling you, the church is fascist. They supported Nazi Germany. And I've caught 2 apostles giving the Heil Hitler. One of them was the president or counselor in the presidency when he did his stunt at the priesthood meeting. They kept the cameras rolling. I was still recording. Oops. And so he got word the next day that Travis has gotten you caught on camera giving the Heil Hitler to the youth choir the young men's choir. So yeah, he then did the next day. Hilarious. So, for decades, why don't you just say from the beginning, Family Services has been one of the largest private, non-profit adoption agencies in the world. Can we say the biggest human traffickers of children, babies, worldwide? That's what they're not telling you here, but they're telling you they're one of the largest private, non-profit adoption agencies in the world. They're human trafficking. They stopped in 2014. And so instead, they now teach girls to keep the baby rather than abort it, regardless of how they got pregnant, and then forces them to go to an adoption agency that the church is recommending. And this gave rise to the Mormon who trafficked women from his mission out in the Philippines, I think it was, somewhere out there, and would bring them to Arizona and to West Valley, because I did the video on this when the news broke. Sean Reyes was in the news as being the one to shut this down. Now he's been bribed to let it slide when the church gets involved with human trafficking again. They're going to bring this back for Zion. Do not be fooled. The reason why they had to give up is because, guess what was going on in the nation? Oh, gay marriage is getting approved. Yay! The church tried to commit election fraud in the 2008 California election for Prop 8 and got busted, sort of. Not really. They got exposed. That was pretty much it. But by 2014, I think that's when it was in federal law. Obama approved gay marriage nationwide. And so what does the church do? They quit. Because they don't want to give Mormon rape babies to anyone but white, rich, Mormon man and woman families. They don't want to have to give them to a gay couple. It's the same reason why they bailed on the Boy Scouts. You're letting girls in, you're letting gays in. And we're getting busted for allowing Boy Scouts to be victimized, raped by the scout leaders who we put in. So the church bailed. Church has a tendency of bailing when gays get involved. They do not want equality for all humans. And so the religious exemption clause, religious freedom, we are exempt from following the law. Where do they put it? In laws that grant LGBTQ equal rights. And it just got passed in the federal level, didn't it? The Respect for Marriage Act? Well, the church doesn't get to respect marriage because they put their exemption clause, which allowed other GOP members in the Senate to say, oh, okay, well, that's fine then. I can approve that as long as religion doesn't have to follow the law. So, I don't know. I can understand why Mormons can get upset with me when I expose this of the church. But I don't understand why ex-Mormons, former Mormons, LGBTQ are not getting this. You know the church isn't true, but you just can't take it to that next level that the church is evil. Why? Why can't you understand the church is evil? They're not just false, they're evil. That's why they're false. You just can't take it to that next level. Why is that? Somebody explain it to me, please. Because you're not wanting to listen to me either. I know why Mormons don't want to listen. No. This building has statues in the leasing office of the three monkeys. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. It's an awesome statue set. And so here's how they run their operation. And they were criticized for this, which is also why they had to shut it down. People were putting pressure on them. They tell Mormons, they tell us, growing up, you've got to be sexually pure. That's why the Boy Scouts were so important to us, because we were morally straight. It's changed with gays being put in. And so we then hit puberty. We then have natural biological science changes in our body, to our body, with our body, about our body, in our body. All of those preposition words. And we have the church telling us that we are evil for having those feelings. Evil. That it's of the devil. That we need to suppress them and turn them off. Just like the Book of Mormon musical. Or did that have to be taken out too? That's culturally insensitive, and we demand you remove that from your play. Guys, stop it. Leave him alone. It was fine the way it was. And so, yes, Mormons are told abstinence only. No masturbation, no pornography. But then what is pornography? We aren't told. We are told generally that anything that sexually turns us on. Wow. I saw the woman's eyes across the hall. Is she pornography? And so, yes, psychology is joining the church with family services to say, yes, you're evil. You need my help. Let's give you some drugs to destroy your brain. Because back in those days, in the 80s, there was the commercial. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? It's an egg in a frying pan. And then, yes, hardcore drugs that were being used frequently, hourly, at the shelter. Yes, that's why there's so many dumb guys in the shelter. Brain damaged guys in the shelter. And they're rounding them up to exterminate them, by the way. Did I mention that? And so, yes, psychotropic drugs are now administered to people who have addiction problems, which is all fallacious arguments. The church is also pulling the criminal, inhumane stunt that the Nazi Germans were using too, called conversion therapy. Electroshock therapy, as it's also called generally. And if you don't understand, I refer you to Clockwork Orange, because Britain was using it too. No nation is innocent. Are innocent. And so the church was shocking LGBTQ, and it was homosexuals back then. They weren't concerned about lesbians, and there was no such thing as the other categories of sexual identity? Really? Again, psychologists are the ones to blame for creating those other letters of sexual identity and telling people that despite biological science of the human anatomy, we're now going to create sexual identities that are not scientifically based just because you feel that you're that person. And so they still have not allowed pedophiles to be included with their little group. Pedophiles were born that way too. Why can't they be given rights and privileges and freedoms too for their sexual orientation? Again, it's easy to humiliate a fallacious argument. And so, because it's impossible to suppress and turn off sexual desire. Women experience it once a month. Boys experience it every 7 seconds. Or so I'm told. And so when boys and girls get together, they tend to be attracted to each other. And when you're telling them that they need to turn it off, they're doing the best they can, and they can't. Because they're not taught how to interact with the proper sex ed. They're lied to. And so you get all these lies, and so the kids are like, well, I guess I was lied to, and so I'll just do whatever I want. And then they get pregnant. How did that happen? You weren't given sex ed. That's how it happened. And now it's a situation of the parents don't want to have to raise a baby and the mother, their daughter, who now will no longer get another man to marry her. As the boy, he's too young. He's got a mission to go on, a football career to go on, and he's going to be an apostle one day. You know, his life is going to be ruined if she insists on not just taking care of the thing itself. So women are debased in Mormonism. Women are blamed, victimized, beyond the victimization. And it's just a young love. They can get married according to Utah law if the parents approve. Parents don't approve. That's the problem, because they too are indoctrinated by the church to consider their children evil rather than young love. And so you hear the excuse of Mormons who got married young, who got divorced, with the inevitable excuse, that is a fallacious argument, oh, I was just too young. No, you weren't. You weren't raised properly. You weren't given sex ed. You weren't taught how to live with another person outside of your family. See, when you go to Rick's College or BYU or any educational school where you're having to live with other people, a roommate, when you go on a mission, you have to live in the same room but not in the same bed with another person. You get to learn how to live with another person and not leave them. They can't go anywhere. You're stuck with them. But it's a test run because at the end of the semester or when you finish and graduate or they graduate, they're gone. Marriage is supposed to be for lifetime. And so it's kind of preparation for marriage. And if you aren't given that experience on how to live with other people, that puts a burden in your marriage. And I know this from 2 experiences. Except the second one was previously married, but again, divorced. But I don't blame being too young on the failure of the first marriage. I blame the first wife. She was the one who purposely destroyed our marriage. And so I know where the blame lies. I do not hold any guilt of responsibility. It does not take two to tango. That is a fallacious argument. And so the kids, the girl in this situation is the one stuck with the baby. And because the church disapproves of abortion, and thus the state of Utah disapproves of abortion, the girl is now forced to have the baby. Now, if it was out of love, even if it's just puppy love for the little boy crush, she still wants to have the baby. Because that reminds her of that special night. But nobody else wants her to have that kind of lifestyle. They don't want her to have that baby, especially her parents. They don't want to have to care for another child that they purposely didn't have another child for that reason. They want to be grandparents, not parents to a grandchild. And so the child is then put into family services where they would threaten the girl by showing her pictures of an aborted baby. See how awful this is? You're murdering this baby if you abort the baby. You need to have this baby, and then we're going to kidnap it from you, and then we're going to place it in a good family, not a wicked family like you, and they're going to raise it better than what you can do under our current economic system that purposely abuses and victimizes single mothers. So imagine now the other scenario of how women get pregnant. She's raped, like Elizabeth Smart. And the exact same treatment is given. This is what the church does. This is what they did when they had the adoption agency. They still do it without the adoption agency. They still pressure girls to have the baby and not abort it, even if they were raped, and they want nothing to do to remind them of that rape experience. This is not an issue of pro-life versus pro-choice. This is about human trafficking that you become a victim of after you've been victim of sexual assault. The church is now profiting off of your baby that you don't want, or that you do want and you don't want to give it away. They're stealing it from you so that they can profit off of it, because the adoptive parents have to pay for the baby. The righteous parents have to pay, just like all Mormons who are righteous pay tithing to the church. This is human trafficking. And so, they shut it down because gays were now legally allowed to adopt children. And the church, running an adoption service, are legally not allowed to deny LGBTQ from adopting a baby now. So they quit. Religious freedom. That exemption clause. That's why they're pushing the exemption clause, so that they don't have to give babies for adoption to LGBTQ, and then they can bring back the adoption service. And it's human trafficking. Just like the Arizona missionary, returned missionary, who kidnapped pregnant women from his mission field, brought them to Arizona and West Valley, and then would adopt the babies out. Because the church was no longer doing it. So it was a wide open field. This is the human trafficking of the church, sponsored by psychology, to use fallacy arguments to trick girls, force girls to traffic their child, because they don't get any money for it. They don't get the money of selling their baby. Church does. And it's coming back for Zion.